This is how I climbed from Bronze to Grandmaster playing tank only as a brand new player. This challenge was completed in just over 20 hours of gameplay, and was solo only, no group or duo queue. And just to be clear, I'm not saying getting Grandmaster in that time is a huge flex by any means. Everyone starts at Bronze, so a decent portion of the challenge is just grinding a ton of games. With that being said, competitive definitely takes some getting used to. So my goal for this video is to provide some essential takeaways from my own experience to help speed up your climb and take away some of the frustration and guesswork that comes along with mastering competitive. I'll be going through what I learned all along the way, what worked, what didn't, what came easy, and where I got stuck. And I did this challenge as a tank, but most of these tips will apply to pretty much any role. I chose tank for this challenge mainly because it's the least popular role, so by definition it's also the most needed role. Everyone's used to the experience of loading into a game with 4 or 5 insta-lock duelists. Then your team plays a game of chicken to decide who will swap first to avoid a guaranteed loss. Playing tank just lets you avoid all this and turn these seemingly unwinnable games into victories by giving your team some structure and coordination. This will be broken down by rank starting from Bronze all the way up, so regardless of where you're stuck on the ladder, there should be some valuable tips here for you. And I'll be sure to include timestamps, so feel free to skip around. Bronze. To be honest, there's not too much to say about Bronze. Everyone's got to start there. It's the literal bottom of the totem pole. People are fresh level 10, trying out rank for the first time, or they're smurfing. They're Spider-Man fanboys in every other game, doing nothing but swinging around on webs and RPing as Peter Parker. You'll pretty much never see anyone using a mic, essentially no communication or coordination at all. But in this chaos, you should be able to carry pretty well. So my biggest advice for Bronze is to take full advantage of your enemy's lack of awareness and play as aggressively as possible. Healers in Bronze are generally not going to be skilled enough to effectively kite you, and the rest of the team probably won't help them, so you should be able to clear out the enemy backline in many situations. Then without heals, the enemy team will fall apart. Thor was my tank of choice in Bronze and throughout many of the lower ranks. He has great mobility and really high burst damage for a tank. Most games I just dove the backline and killed their healers over and over. And it's Bronze, so I wasn't punished for playing like this. Other dive tanks like Venom, Hulk, or even Cap could achieve similar results. But honestly, I'd avoid main tanks like Magneto or Strange. Of course, they're very strong, but your teammates aren't going to be organized enough to take full advantage of your shield. So in my opinion, it's better to pick a tank that has more inherent damage and carry potential. I know this is a pretty controversial take, because obviously Strange is literally the best tank in the game. I'm not saying Strange is bad at training at all, but I just had an easier time solo carrying with Thor. Also, if you start playing ranked right at level 10, be sure to stick with a few heroes to main. You want to be very familiar with your abilities before reaching higher ranks. But also, Bronze is a place to figure some stuff out, so don't be afraid to branch out and try a variety of heroes. I just recommend learning the basics in practice range and quick play first. Most players should climb quickly in Bronze. The only way I can really see someone struggling a lot in Bronze is if you've bought an account and haven't really played quick play enough. And even then, you should just lock in Hawkeye and you'll be fine. Silver. In my experience, Silver isn't much different from Bronze. The main difference being players will start to actually know how to use their abilities. This just means you won't be able to roll over the entire backline with ease quite as often. They're going to actually start shooting back. With that being said, my 2 biggest tips for Silver are don't stagger and take full advantage of the map. In Silver, there's still a lot of players that either don't understand the basics of a hero shooter or are just too ADHD to pay attention to them. You'll see them repeatedly run onto a capture point 1v6 when your whole team is already dead, staggering you another 15 seconds. It's important you're not the one doing this. Also, just giving some minimal comms over voice chat or some pings can help rein in these players who are playing the game like it's a COD deathmatch. In the same vein, remind your team not to overcommit ultimates when a fight is already lost. For example, you don't want your Luna to pop ultimate when your whole team is dead and she's the last person on point. Now, they might not listen to you, but it's worth mentioning. Second, the maps change a lot due to destructible environment. There are whole buildings and bridges that can come crashing down in this game. You always need to know what can break to effectively decide where to position your team. You don't want to hold a corner only for the whole building in front of you to come crashing down. There are also some nasty flank options by breaking certain walls. You can make a whole video talking about all these options, but to keep it simple for tanking purposes, just hit B before deciding to hold somewhere. This will highlight what is destructible around you, and you can play accordingly. Now, you could go into a custom lobby and study all the map designs, but I think that's a bit overkill, at least until the higher ranks. You'll learn the maps as you play. Just be sure to hit B every now and then, and you'll keep learning about new routes. Gold. Gold is the first rank where it actually feels like you're playing a team game with objectives. Before this point, this game basically feels like team deathmatch with extra steps. In many games, you'll actually have a bit of coordination and awareness from your team, so make sure to take full advantage of this fact. For me, the most important takeaways from Gold are take full advantage of the ping functionality, and remember to always play for the objective. Pinging is an essential mechanic to utilize, and it's important all the way up the ladder. To be honest, your pings won't always be listened to in Gold, but you want to get used to using them ASAP because pinging a focus target for your DPS or alerting your healers of a flanker can single-handedly carry a fight. Especially as a tank, you're kind of guiding your team, so pinging is a particularly valuable tool to help keep your team focused on the right things. If you play an aim-intensive character, I'd recommend rebinding or assigning a second keybind to ping. Doing this will allow you to keep your finger on the left click when trying to finish a low HP target, while also being able to ping your teammates to assist at the same time. Also, I'd recommend customizing your ping wheel because the default options aren't great. You can even double the amount of available pings from 4 to 8. Here are the pings I have equipped. Thanks isn't exactly an essential comm, but it just makes me feel better by being able to show some appreciation to the supports after I spam ping for healing. That brings me to my second point. Always play for the objective. This point is deceptively simple, but it has a lot of nuance to it. As an example, let's talk about defending on a payload map, or convergence as they're called in Rivals. If the enemy team is pushing the payload and you're losing the fight, you pretty much have two options as a tank. You can either hold your ground on the cart and die to reset, or slowly back your team out to a further back choke point to take a fight. If you know you're gonna die, you should always stay and die on payload. The goal is to limit the enemy team's progression as much as possible. If you think you can salvage your team and regroup, it's always better to back up. Backing up and staying alive is always a faster reset than respawning. What I see a lot of tanks doing, and what you should never do, is continuously back up while getting run down by the enemy team. All the while, you're not even contesting the payload. Because of this positioning, you're both losing a fight and losing the maximum distance on the objective while the fight is happening. If you take a losing fight, but die on the objective, they can only start pushing it after you're dead. So even though you lost a fight, they'll only get maybe half the distance than in the other scenario. Of course, KDA-wise, this may give you worse stats, but it's much more important to play for the objective rather than your life. You can apply this principle in every game mode on every single map in different ways. This is a pretty big topic and could probably be discussed in an entire video of its own. But as a tank player, understanding this concept alone will improve your game sense more than anything else. This is why, in terms of hero selection, Gold was the first division where I started playing Doctor Strange more than Thor. Doctor Strange is pretty much top of S tier for tanks, so if you're tanking, it's definitely worth learning. He's also especially good at solo tanking, which is something you're going to have to get used to doing pretty often. Magneto can do similar things, but it is a bit more situational. Plat. Plat is probably the first division that a large percentage of players actually get stuck in. Everyone understands the basics of the game and their own characters, so choosing easy wins gets a bit more challenging. That being said, there are a few things that can really help set you apart of this rank to climb fast. It mainly comes down to understanding hero synergies, counters, and situational picks. These change a lot depending on your role, but some of the best tank synergies are as follows. Double Shield, which is Strange and Magneto. Living Defense, that's just a name I made up for Penny and Groot. Avengers Bros, Cap and Thor. Cap is pretty weak right now, but in the right hands, he can definitely be very good, especially with Thor. Of course, there are so many more synergies with other characters, not even including all the team-up options, but that'd be a whole 30-minute video of its own. Here are some of the basic counters for tanks. Shield tanks are great against ranged hit-scan characters like Punisher, Hela, Namor, and Hawkeye. Penny Parker is great against strong dive teams. Thor can be a great option to counter the tank killer, Wolverine. Magneto or Hulk are also great options if your team is being dove often as well. The bubble can really come in clutch in saving your squishy teammates. Also, a small tip, I would turn on always show teammate health bars if you play tank especially. You can turn it on just for certain heroes like Magneto, Strange, Hulk, etc. There are so many synergies and counters in this game, it's important to at least know what they are so you can utilize them and effectively play around them. Sometimes you'll be banging your head against the wall trying to win certain matchups, when you could turn the tides of the fight with very little effort just by swapping to a different character. For example, if you're attacking on a convergence map and you're playing Penny Parker, it's possible to win, but it may be 50% easier if you just swap to a dive tank like Thor or Venom. Diamond. Diamond is the holding cell for a lot of hard-stuck players. Maybe you're an amazing aimer and just don't have the game sense yet. Maybe you're great on one character but can't perform if you're forced to flex. Or maybe you've just gotten extremely unlucky with bad teammates. To be honest, Diamond isn't too hard to climb out of if you've mastered all of the things I previously mentioned. That being said, I'll provide my biggest takeaways from Diamond that helped push me into Grandmaster. The biggest game difference between Diamond and all previous ranks is that there are now bans. This means that it's essential you know the meta and have alternative picks ready. If you're a Bruce Banner main, get ready to be banned out in almost every game. The Iron Man Strange Hulk team-up is banned via Hulk in almost every match currently. Also, if you've abused Hawkeye and Hela to Diamond, get ready to learn some new characters, because you'll pretty much never get them. This goes the same for one-tricks. If anyone recognizes your name on the enemy team, it's very possible that you'll get target banned. With all that being said, bans actually help unless you play a very strong character or are a one-trick. Personally, tanking was actually easier in Diamond as opposed to Plat because you don't have to deal with Hela and Hawkeye killing you in half a second. I think supports had a similar experience as well. Pretty much everyone except those abusing these busted characters will have a better ranked experience in Diamond. Just be sure to communicate with your team before banning something, because if you have a very good Hela player, leaving it open can be pretty much a free win. The second big takeaway for Diamond is to track enemy ultimates and ultimate management in general. To be honest, you should have a basic understanding of this already, but mastering this is essential to climbing in Rivals. You can always see what your team's ultimate statuses are, but you can't see the enemies. This means you should be taking mental notes of what ults are being used and when. If you aren't doing this already, I promise that this will let you climb a few subdivisions on its own. Ultimates are like currency. You need to spend them to get what you want, but you also don't want to overspend. I'll give an example to illustrate this point. Let's say you're Thor and you have a Psylocke on your team, and you know the enemy Luna has ult. You want to make sure you don't overlap ults with your Psylocke before Luna ults, because she can negate both your ults with hers. So basically you'd be trading 2 ults for 1 and getting no value. But if you as Thor solo ult her first and force her to ult, you'll be at least trading 1 for 1. Then an even better scenario would be to dive her, force her to ult to stay alive, then temporarily back off. Now you can both ult with a much higher chance of getting value from them. Here's one more quick example. Let's say you have a Spider-Man and he ults and instantly kills 2. You don't want to commit more ultimate currency to that fight if it's already won. Unless the enemy team tries to turn the fight by spending more of their ult currency. Then it may be worth it to use your ult in response to guarantee the fight win. A good habit to get used to is pressing tab often. This way you can check what ults your team has available to decide what ults you'll commit to the next fight. That's all the tips I have for now. There's a ton of topics I gloss over pretty quickly, so let me know in the comments if there's anything you want me to elaborate on. I'm considering making a follow-up video as I try to climb from GM to Eternal, but we'll see how long that takes. I regularly stream here and on Twitch, so please be sure to drop a follow. And as always, if you enjoyed the video and want to see more Rivals content, please be sure to like and sub. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.